What's up, everyone? It's King of Ruckus. The Walking Dead is easily one of my favorite shows, and it took me a while, but I finally got caught up on it, and I watched last night's episode live, and it was easily one of my favorite episodes of the season, if not my favorite. If you're not caught up, if you have this show DVR'd or whatever, you may want to click out, because I'm going to be talking about the episode in great detail, so just, click out, come back later. The series has always had really good writing, but in this episode it really seemed to stick out. Right in the beginning, you have Rick, Carl, and Michonne, and they're passing somebody who really needs help. He's screaming for him, he's got a backpack on, he's obviously weighed down by. Clearly, if they leave this guy alone, he's done, and they just keep driving. Early in the series, Rick would have gladly stopped to try and help this guy out, but they become so jaded by what they've seen throughout the series that they consider him a threat. They don't even want to try and maybe vet him and try and feel him out. They just see him, he's somebody who's not with them, they need to leave him alone, and that's how they feel. They keep driving, there's a big roadblock, or not really a big roadblock, but fuck him! Got him. It's a roadblock with zombies, and they get stuck trying to drive around it. And they take a while trying to get past it, and this poor guy, he's still running. And he's screaming. He's still within a distance where they can help him. And they just look at him. Rick looks at him. You could tell he's kind of maybe thinking about picking the dude up again. But he's like, he doesn't say anything, and they just leave. Later on, they get back to Rick's old hometown. And Carl has some things to do. Well, Carl has some other agenda. He's saying he's supposed to go do one thing, but he really wants to do something else. And it's pretty clear that he wants to get a picture of his mom. Like, I picked that up right away, but, he's a kid, and his mother's dead now, and obviously he needs a memento, not just for himself, but for her daughter, his sister. So they get back to their hometown, and there's just a ton of traps set out, and, obviously, whoever's there doesn't want anyone else there. There's writing all over the walls. You get the impression that it's a lot of people. A walker sets off one of the traps, and someone immediately pops up and tells them to, just get out of town, leave their shit and get out. Leave your shoes, leave your guns, get out of here. They stall for time a little, fire at him, scatter. Eventually he comes down, and Carl just shoots him. And Rick kind of looks at him like he's shocked, like that Carl did it. And to me, that was a really good moment, because Carl has been stepping up his game throughout the series. Like, this poor kid, he's seen his mother die. He's seen so many people die, and it's like, that would break most kids, but this kid is really, it's kind of funny, but I compare this kid to like a real-life Bruce Wayne and shit. When Bruce Wayne's parents died, he stopped being a kid at that point, and that's basically what happened with this kid Carl. Like his childhood is basically over. He's stepping up. It hasn't broken him, and his father really hasn't seemed to notice it. Like, he's acknowledged it at times, but this is one of those moments where it was right up in his face, and he couldn't do a damn thing about it. Like, he just had to accept that his son, will make the tough choices at times. Like, he had to acknowledge it and respect it. He was kind of shocked by it. He asked his Carl, like, are you okay? And Carl's like, yeah, like it didn't faze him. And they unmasked this guy, and it turns out to be Morgan from season 1. The guy that unfortunately got left behind with his son Dwayne. And later you find out that all the writing that you see, all these traps, all this madness throughout this town, it was all done by Morgan. He's basically lost his mind. Rick basically started losing it when he killed Shane in season 2. And they were saying, the people behind the scenes, the writers and everybody, were saying that Rick would be on a dark path in season 3, and that's really been true. Especially when Lori died, he's getting phone calls from nobody. He's seeing Lori walking around, he's really beginning to lose it. Even his son told him, Dad, maybe you should let someone else lead. And that's pretty messed up for your own son to say that to you, but it's true, like, the dude's losing it. But running into Morgan is something that Rick really clearly needed, because he was losing it. And you really feel bad for Morgan, because it turns out, since Morgan wouldn't put his undead wife out of her misery, she ended up killing his son, their son. And all the references to the word clear, which basically means that he's cleared the area, or he's gotten rid of all the zombies and everything. All the references that they've seen all throughout the town, everything that he's done, his just relentless pursuit of walkers is all because he didn't take her out. And what makes it worse is that he's acquired like a ridiculous arsenal. I don't know where he got all these guns from. There has to be a gun shop or 8 in that town. He's got pretty much all the guns of that town in this one room. It's pretty clear that he could take himself out at any time, but he's created his own little hell on earth because he feels so guilty about what happened, and he just wants to make himself suffer over and over. That's the impression I got, and if you watch the episode, I think you'll jump to that conclusion too. He could easily end his suffering at any time, but he refuses to do so. He set up all these traps, and he just goes out and kills every walker that falls into him. He refuses to he just refuses to put himself out of his misery. He just wants to keep going on and keep suffering. And this is something that I could really see Rick end up doing. Like, if he lost Carl, you could clearly see him just making himself suffer until he just couldn't live anymore, until he ran out of food and sustenance. And that's what this guy Morgan's doing. And I know that sounds pretty dark too. You know what I mean? On the flip side of the coin, he could just try and leave that town, lead people back to those weapons, and with those people try and carve out some sort of semblance of, I don't know, livability, I guess is the word, some sort of semblance of life with other people, and try and get something going. But clearly, you know, as I mentioned earlier in this video, it's meant to show where Rick could have gone. You know, Rick up until he met Morgan again was really headed down a dark path, and you see what that path could have been with Morgan, or you see one variation of it. Like I just said before, like, this is something I could honestly see Rick doing. This is something I could see happening with him if he lost Carl and he just had nothing else to live for. If he felt responsible for Carl's death, which he would no matter what happened, he would make himself suffer as long as possible. When the episode ends, Morgan's still alive. He's actually come out of his hole, and you get the impression that he's headed back in the right direction, but they left him there. He didn't want to go with them, and Carl's like, "I'm sorry I shot you," and Morgan's like, "Never apologize." And when Morgan said that, I felt like part of it was guilt over what happened with his son, but part of it was also telling Carl, you know, you did the right thing. In that situation, shoot first, ask questions later. It's the same thing Rick probably would have said to him in that situation, which is a good sign for Morgan's sanity. And it gave me the impression that we would eventually see Morgan again, not only because his character was alive and because the guy who plays him is a really good actor, but, you know, just because it seemed like he turned it around in that episode. But I ended up spoiling myself, and I went to IMDb, and it turns out that this guy will show up in one more episode this season. I'm not going to tell you which one. If you want to know, go to imdb.com, look up, what's the dude's name? I can't believe I forgot his name. Lenny James. If you want to know, go up to imdb.com, look up Lenny James, go to The Walking Dead Season 3, and you'll see which episode it is. I'm not going to tell you which one, just in case you don't want to know, but just be happy that he is appearing in one more episode. If you watch The Talking Dead, which airs after every episode, next week they'll have the actress who plays Maggie. That chick is beautiful, but she's also a really good actress. The episode I saw this week was actually my first episode of The Talking Dead, and I liked it. It was pretty good. It seems like they have different guests every week. They also have exclusive interviews and sneak previews of the episode the following week. The one they showed was the first meeting between Rick and the governor, and Rick didn't say shit. The governor said like maybe one line, but you could feel the tension in that room. I really cannot wait to see how that goes. It's probably just going to be them talking. You're not going to see too much action. It's just be a setup for the rest of the season, but it still looks like it's going to be badass, man. I cannot wait to see it. But that's it for this video. Let me know what you guys thought. Did you guys see this episode? Are you fans of The Walking Dead? What did you think of this episode? What have you thought of the season so far? Do you read the comic books? Because the comic books and the TV show, they're basically two different beasts. So I want to know what you guys think of either one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.